the beginning, the main definition that corporate governance is attributed is the separation of ownership from control. And this is where the principal agent take place. Like in any company, this is a fundamental structure. Now, the reason I choose Bishuk 209, it's because I wanted to do a corporate governance related to startups. And it's very tricky because very few of them are made for startups. Because everybody works at certain data. And when you're given the data compared the startups to the developed companies, there's basically nothing in startups. So I took this one to, I think he makes a voice from the side of startups, because like the risk matrix, corporate governance quotient, he and the anti-director and the self-dealing, he criticizes them negatively, although they are unique in the whole world. Like the whole world is only using this to make hundreds and hundreds, if not say thousands of big companies. So he took the, and he is from Harvard, so he's well published, and he figured out that a company with controlled shareholder is very different from a non-controlled shareholder. And in the United States, non-controlled shareholder is a majority, whereas in Europe and Asia, controlled shareholder is a majority. So I took him on and I see why I picked it up, because it makes a difference. Now this is, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. This is because I was told to somehow to give the essence of corporate governance. So this is why corporate governance exists. But this is, you don't want to hear too much of it, but I'll, okay. Now, those are official definition of corporate governance. I mainly use the OECD one because for some reason this is the widely used definition, and it's used in the legal system as much in the financial system. And this is where the tendency in this presentation is to basically find a way that crosses between legal and finance. The rest of, because as you might know, corporate governance is really wide. A lot of aspects of it joins it. So you have to decide, and we decide on this one. So if you have this is it's almost a diversification of the risks. One side is shareholder risk, and one side managerial rights risk. So it's you see already the nature of difference. One side of the curve lies at a different aspect than the management. So there could not be a gap. There's only a gap. It could never be not mismatch, which is okay because this is the nature of things. They want the management desire of something and the shareholders desire something else. Now, moral hazard, for some reason, is supposed to be the element that is, we find it among management and shareholders, in the sense that moral hazard is very human. A human being is use moral hazard to behave, and that's why a shareholder have a different moral hazard than a manager. And this is still, I'm talking about governance of big companies. Later on, we will grow it down and take it down to a small level. Now, this is a suggestion, but it's okay. It's okay. It's academic. What it says that you have to. There's insider information and what you do about it. Now, here is a quick look at the same time at what is called the dysfunctional. How come it become dysfunctional? But dysfunctional in the sense that it works, but because of moral hazards that is different among different of us, we'll each have a different way to look at things. For example, accounting manipulation is very much at stake because it's in the hands of everybody. Everybody understand accounting, so this is where most of the trouble comes. But it is not the only thing that is in action. There's a lot more than accounting. Now, becomes the dilemma of governing an SME. When we are building a startup, the person is usually everything at the same time. It can be the CEO, she can be at the same time the chairman, and she can be the auditor, and blah, blah, blah. It's what it does. But then this is the beginning of how it but what happens at the same time is that, and the founder at the same time start to work through the moral hazards from the beginning. It's not a matter of it takes 100 employees or 500 employees and then you get to start your moral standard. It doesn't work that way. It works really with 1 or 2 employee or 10 employee. It's a habitual thing. And so what I try to say to CEO is to take it for granted and seriously from the beginning. Not sort of to take it lightly and not seriously because it's coming up and God knows why he would be concerned about all this governance thing, whereas he is concerned about totally different thing. So when you grab them, they definitely feel evasive. It's not a captive thing. It's not like if I was giving a course in accounting, can be very, very attentionate. But when you give him a notion of governance, then he can be completely evasive. He has no, and that's this is a dilemma. It's somehow now some places, for example, in Shanghai, we use simulation. There are nations who live in simulations better than others. for some reason, Chinese people, they love simulations, and it works really well. But I never had a chance to give it a try here. I tried it with a stranger in Lebanon, but that's not it, the thing. The idea is to work with Lebanese. So what happens? The thing is, the CEO, he becomes, he starts to play with a split personality thing. He is forced into a split personality because he has to do this and extra at the same time. He be working in the business, he be working out of the business, like shareholders, credit holders, Blue Angels, everything is gonna become, and then he has to work with stakeholders, and then he become a big bank director. So all this is definitely not simple. If it was easy for him, and it is usually a lot easier if the company was bigger, and he can be chosen to act on it, whether a CEO, or it can be a risk manager, or he can be a chairman, and then at least the quantity imposes on him the value of his work. He has 500 employees. He is responsible for them as a human resources. Now, if you talk to him of risk, he has nothing to do with risk. So it becomes easier in terms of his job. That's why governance is a bit more than management. He has to do with all those constraints, and usually it involves it involves a lot of sit down and think about it. That's what it takes. It's the only thing that can tell somebody involved in the business, in the startup business, is that you take it easy, because usually when there's a CEO is on a 240 volts and he's wee-wah, wah-wah, usually it's good for whoever is interested in communication. But when it comes to reality, this is definitely different. He has to be quiet, and we really have to think about what is he doing. Now, crowded funding equity, this is usually the simulation I do. I usually divide, which is not the case, but I divide the classroom in numbers. Usually I divide a CEO and a chairman and senior management, and then I get the shareholder, and then afterward the board, and then I get stakeholders, which include everything, usually credit and commerce and everything. And then you have the special steering committee, like the auditors and special committees like risk management and cyber management, and now there's a cloud coming into event. So all this, and I usually start the lesson or this presentation with the crowdfunding equity. I guess you all know what crowdfunding is about. Crowdfunding is a democratic, that's what it's called, way of gathering money from a lot of people. In Belgium, for example, for 300,000 euro on a 1,000 maximum. So this is what crowdfunding is about. And what I have them decide is between if it's public or not public within the company. And this is definitely a very delicate question, but they know it as it goes on. But the fact is that they touch of the notion that this is it is what it evolves when it becomes public and non-public is dissimulation. And if I finish the session with 15 minutes of discussion, and usually it keeps really messy. It's not very funny the way you see it, because usually, and it's a bit twisted, because usually we have a CEO and the board. You know, you don't have shareholders, you don't have stakeholders, but this is what we thought is a twisted way of the notion. Now, this is what at the beginning I mentioned using the from Harvard, and what he's saying is that CS is controlled shareholders, and NCS is non-controlled shareholder. Now, as you might see, he picked about 5 criteria which make a company twisted. Like the independence director, this is becoming a huge phenomenon in the last 5 years, because it just, I guess, somehow it has to do with the hype, and somehow it has to do with the reality. But the other stuff is really older, like the minority versus majority. The board vis-a-vis the shareholder is something very old, and it's the number of studies on the subject is humongous. There's enormous amount of, and they come from all sides. It's from management and finance, and it's all of suspects of it gets into the others. Now, this is very classical. It's I don't want to more than show it to you, but what it says mainly is it's a separation between ownership and a managerial control. Believe yourself, or imagine yourself, you are at a table with a function, and you have 10,000 employees. You can't just chew a gum, because first of all, there is billions of dollars moving. And so when a CEO asks the compensation plan, usually it tends to be perceived as a negativity, but it is not. What really gets the board very busy is the compensation plan of the CEO, because it is proved, and very well proved, that the better he gets, the more money the company will work, and they're after money, and they're not doing something else. They really after the money. So it's always a back and forth issue between the manager and the shareholder, and the mismatch is humongous and indefini. But this is the basic of it. Now, this is definitely in the book, in many books, so I'm not going to go deep into them because you already, if you need to know, you know, you can look at it in every book, but I'm showing you, and this is what they use to understand the basis of a governance. It goes on. I, I, this is in a classroom where I give a classroom for a semester. I usually develop all this, but this is it. This is the startup of all this. But here today, we're not doing this. So it's like a summary of what it should be. Now, for example, institutional investors. The institutional investors is those who have like a block holder. They are like mutual funds. They have a tremendous amount of money, and they present themselves as buyers from shareholders. But what sometimes they buy like 5%. But 5% of a company has a shareholder value of 10 billions, it's a lot of money. But what they do, and this has been a thorough search, because where is money, there is research. And mainly, they used to be at the beginning thought as if they were acting not in a good sense of the company. But later on, and later in the last 10, 15 years, they have been proven that this is definitely the opposite. The more they buy, or the way they buy it, their intervention in the company is getting better. Why? Because management in the company is less sleepy. Because they are literally attacked by institutional investor. So management cannot go and sleep. They have to be all the time awake and waiting for them. This is it's one definition of the board. Now, this is the same thing is the classical definition of what a CEO and how we can move within the company and outside the company. This is the board usually has independent board in it. He usually have inside director and outside directors. And here I show you in the outside and the inside director, and it's very funny because it's going. This is, for example, the number of board directors. See the difference between United States and Japan. It's huge. For Toronto has 60. Can you imagine 60 something around the table? I mean, I was in different boards, and 9 were like a lot. Usually it's 15 is like 200,000 employees. It's really something. But now, it's okay. It's about type. There's a type of this is the basic salary and the bonuses, and what is a similarity. For example, the comparison of awarding bonus with larger raise. Now, stock options, everybody by now understand what stock options, and they are really in a variety of forms, but it usually ends up the same thing. There's a market, and this is something, if you're interested, you can look into it, but what I'm saying is that there's a market for that. And this is I took it from my book. It's very interesting because the integral system, there is a form of integrality in the system, and as you might see, it's all a big chunk of it is interrelated. Like creditors can do with analysts, but then management can deal with creditors, and it's all a mishmash, but it's a reality. This is about legal, but it's okay. This is the large, like creditors and credit trading. It's huge. It's not just a joke. It's like the value of the work is humongous. This is rating is very important in this sense, because if the management of the company keeps a very good eye on rating companies, so we know a very well known fact that they pay them off. So when they pay the rating company behaves according to how much they paid. So it's not very clear when a company has been rated. As an analyst, there's no way I'll take it seriously, because, or at least we know that a chunk of it is biased because they are really being paid. So it doesn't, so this is something, the reason I put it is to mention that this is something we don't look at it positively, but we do look at it. Now, shareholder activism it's like, has been, as I try to mention, it's something that has been, on the last 20 years, very active. So, and the way they deal with the shares is that they're very positive. They're not just buying things. They activist. That is, for example, they push the shareholder into a mix of voting, so as if, for example, they have a project and they want to shovel it through the management, they get it through the shoulders, to the shoulder of the shareholders, which is very strong, as opposed to themselves going and defining it. So it's taking a lot of attention lately. Now, this is a derivative. This is it to give you. This is about the code. You know that there's a governance code in every country. There's a law and there's a code. That we have one here. We don't know where it is, but it is somewhere where they write the code. And this is one. This is the years it has been developed. Now, y- you cannot escape this one because you have to say it. The implication of the law is definitely, for example, in something between the United States and Taiwan. It's you wonder if it's Taiwan because they think that the United States is too big, so they have to be different. So they do different things, but at the same time they make sure they're not going to be far from the United States. So it's the whole dream, but and sometimes it ends up basically doing the same thing when it comes to governance. Now, does it suffice? It's a positive question. It's all this it has to exist because this is the way it does exist. Now, there is all these reasons why first and second, and this is the end of it. Thank you. Um, I have. This is a simulation sheet, but we do it another time. But I think this is it. Bye.